Hello and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we go back and we look at a Netflix original film in the order of release. Today we have Netflix 393rd film from 2021. It's the Indian Tamil language action thriller called Jagame Thandhiram. It's directed by Karthik Subbaraj and stars Dhanush, James Cosmo, Joju George, Aishwarya Lekshmi and Kalaiyarasan. I'm Jesse, I'm your host. Thank you for joining me today. I do apologise for the butchering of some of those names there, but I'm excited to talk about this one. This is a big, long film, but as always, we will spoil the film as we go. So if you haven't seen this film yet and you're interested in checking it out, give us a pause and come back a little bit later on, because we start our show with the Fast Flicks, where we do a quick little summary of what the film is all about. So this one's about a gangster from India who is poached to the UK to contribute to a turf war. That is the most generalized description of this film that I could give. So hopefully, as I said, I'm going to get into this and talk a lot about how this film ended up on Netflix and what this film is trying to say, because this film is nearly 3 hours long. This is a long film. So around the world. So the title, Jagame Thandhiram, it's Tamil, and it directly translates to the universe is a ruse, or I believe also the secret is the trick. So two of these little titles that probably give you a little bit more about the film. This, in Spanish, was called A Complicated World. That ticks off. In Portuguese, it's called The Nomadic Gangster. Yeah, that's not too bad. In Czech, it's called Between Good and Evil. In German, The Good and the Evil in the World. Very broad. In Greek, it's The World is Cruel. In Hungarian and Japanese, it's called Tricky World. In Romanian, it's A Complicated World. In Russian, it's Who is Surely, which I like. This is our main protagonist in the film, who we will talk about soon. In Chinese and Vietnamese, it's called Black and White World. Again, I think that's a good title. In Turkish, The World is Hard. And in Arabic, What a Complex World. So a few differentiations there, but obviously the idea is that this world that people live in is a little bit complicated, and there's more to it than just being black and white. Ooh, I like that. All right, this had the working title of D40. We'll talk about that a little bit more soon. But the director, Karthik, he was inspired by popular crime films like The Godfather, The Irishman, Once Upon a Time in America, and Casino. And with this, he wanted to tell a story that bridged the gap of a gangster from New York and a man from Mandarai, with the issue of foreign immigrants being set as the subplot. That's a big key part of this film, is the experience of immigrants in a world other than their own. Subbaraj wrote the script with Dhanush playing the main role and a Hollywood actor like Robert De Niro in mind. We go to April of 2016, where it was announced that Dhanush had agreed to produce the film and play the lead, and the team did try to approach actors like De Niro, Morgan Freeman, and Al Pacino about playing a key role in the film in October of 2016, but they were unsuccessful and said that the process of reaching out to actors was difficult, and that it was often difficult to get past their casting agents. The rights to the film were given to Thendal Studio Limited in April of 2017, and however, the company opted to prioritize the making of other big budget films, and they ran into financial problems and had to shelve this project. S. Shashakanth of Why Not Studios acquired the rights to the film, and the project was revived in February of 2018. Subbaraj planned to make changes in the story as well as the location of the setting to reduce the film's production costs, with the gangster story being set in London now instead of New York. We then moved to July of 2019, where Shashakanth officially announced the project's launch with the title of #D40. While the film was tentatively titled this, there were rumours claiming that the film's title was Surali, or Ulgam Sutram Valaban, which refers to a 1975 film of the same name, whereas Shashakanth claimed that there was no official announcement regarding the film's title. The film's title, Jagame Thandhiram, was announced during the release of the film's poster on the 19th of February 2020, with a reference to a line from a song called Sambo Siva Sambo, which was written by Kandasan from a film from 1979 called Ninafale Inakum. And Karthik Subbaraj initially considered Surali as the film's title, but one day he happened to listen to this song and felt that Jagame Thandhiram would be the apt title for the film. In an interview Karthik Subbaraj stated that the process of finalising a Hollywood actor was going through a casting agent, and once the casting agent was impressed with the script, they then needed to make an offer and the number of days required for shooting, after which the actor would have 3 weeks to accept or reject the offer, and only after those 3 weeks could they approach another actor. So this took up a little bit of their pre-production time. In mid-April of 2018, Pierce Brosnan was reportedly approached for the role in the film, but that was proved to be false because in September of 2019, British actor James Cosmo from Game of Thrones signed up for the character of Peter Sprout in his Indian film debut. Principal photography for the film began on the 24th of September 2019 in Aldgate, East London. On the 7th of November 2019, the filmmakers announced that they'd completed the London schedule within 64 days, and on the 9th of November, the crew headed to India to shoot major portions of the film in Mandarai and parts of Rajasthan. Principal photography wrapped in December of 2019. Post-production started in London in January of 2020. However, it was put on hold because of the COVID-19 pandemic. It later resumed in May of 2020 after the Tamil Nadu government granted permission for the film industry to resume post-production work. The film's final duration for Netflix is 158 minutes. Because of violence and abusive words, it received an 18+ rating in India. And for the Netflix release, 3 songs and sequences were removed to follow the platform's guidelines. The show, or the film, was televised on TV, and it actually had a 165-minute runtime, with the deleted songs and sequences being featured with beeps throughout with the language. Jagame Thandhiram was scheduled to release on the 1st of May 2020, but was delayed because of the pandemic, and the producers confirmed that the film would be scheduled for a theatrical release. This was to refute rumours of release through a streaming platform. In January of 2021, the film was then planned for a February release, which didn't happen as media reports claimed that Netflix were going to purchase the rights. Without any pre-announcement, on the 22nd of February 2021, a teaser trailer for the film was released through Netflix India through their official YouTube channel, which confirmed the release through Netflix. Apparently, the digital rights for the film were sold for 550 million rupees, which is about 6.5 million US dollars. This means that it is the highest paid Tamil film for a digital release. It was initially slated to be released in the last week of March 2020, but on the 27th of April 2021, they announced that it would be released on the 18th of June 2021 on Netflix worldwide. In interviews, the director expressed his disinterest on not crediting the creators of the film on the promotional posters, as that's what Netflix did. He added, "It's the platform's policy not to include credits of the directors and other artists," which led Subbaraj to promote his own poster designs through his social media sites. He further added that it would be nice to see Netflix change their policies in the future. I thought this was an interesting quote because looking online, the official Netflix posters do have the big names on the posters too. So interesting there. The film did premiere on television on Star Vijay 2 months after it was released on Netflix in India. During an interview, the director said that the songs Buji, Nethru and Ayo Ola were removed from the original cut, like I said before, to follow Netflix guidelines. Dhanush, the main actor in this film, was upset with the director as the director offered the direct-to-streaming release, which was irrespective of theatres being reopened and operated at this time with 50% seating capacity because of the pandemic. This caused a bit of a rift between Dhanush and Shashikanth, as Dhanush, as he was a producer as well, unfollowed the director on Twitter and Instagram. Dhanush decided to stay out of the film's promotional activities online after being upset with the decision of the streaming release. So a little bit of controversy towards the release for this film. As I said before, this was released on Netflix worldwide on the 18th of June 2021. What are the critics and audiences saying about this film? On Rotten Tomatoes, this sits at 30%. That is pretty low. That's only on 10 reviews though, but it is rotten. Audience a little bit higher, sits at 52%. That's on more than 50 ratings. If we go to IMDb, it has 13,000 ratings and it sits at a 5.8 out of 10. So not too bad. It's a little bit higher than the Rotten Tomatoes ratings. And Letterboxd sits at a 2.7 out of 5. Again, on that low side from a bit over 8,000 ratings, but has been logged by 12,000 people. There's no critic consensus on Metacritic, but the audience has it on that traffic light system of red, yellow, and green at a 6.3 out of 10, which is green, but that is only on 4 reviews. So overall, I would suggest that
the reception for this film has been pretty negative. What are my early thoughts for this one? What did I think of this film? The first quarter of this film, I think I really struggled. It was just tonally. I couldn't grasp the idea of whether this was trying to be a gangster film or a comedy or a musical. And I guess once I let that slide a little bit and just got into it, I was kind of hooked. The messages that it tries to put across, while they're a little bit all over the shop, they're kind of important and done well for what this is. So fairly okay for me. Not the best film in the world, not the worst film in the world, but I'm sitting there sort of in that middle. Let's, like I said before, this is a long film, so you'd expect quite a bit about the characters. I don't have an awful lot about the characters, but we'll talk about some of the main ones that we see in this film. And we've got to start with Surely. This is our main protagonist. He's the gangster. He's a charming but disrespectful gangster, and he will obviously do anything for money. And he's told that he has to leave his hometown for killing this businessman. So fortunately, he's offered the opportunity to go and do dirty work in Britain for this mob boss called Peter. And I guess the gist of this narrative is him changing from a character that does most things for his own self-interest, and then it changes halfway through the film into, hey, there's more important things than just myself. I want to help others too. But this Peter, this mob boss that Surly works for, he's this rich, tough gangster in London. He's a racist. He's got political protection almost. And he can do his crimey things and get away with it, including trying to get laws passed in relation to migrants and immigrants. And this guy's just not a nice guy. But I'll talk a little bit more about him later on. We have a character called Attila. She's a singer, and she becomes the love interest for Surly very quickly. He pretty much thinks that she's hot, so he wants her. And that was a little bit of a frustration, I guess, with this film. And I guess a part of this plot is to get rid of him, and Attila plays a role in this too. And I found it interesting. Yes, there's probably no real reason why she would like him. She's got this baggage of, and I guess he doesn't understand this baggage, but she does tell him that she's got like a 7-year-old son, her husband passed away, these types of ideas, but there's no actual reason as to why she would like him, because he comes across as very disrespectful and doesn't really reveal too much of himself. The other mob boss that's in London that Surly is hired for by Peter to take on is this guy called Sivados. So he's the opposite of Peter. He deals in arms and cuts on Peter's turf, which upsets him, obviously, but it's revealed later on that the money he's making, he's putting to good use to support migrants and refugees trying to better themselves as well. So he's actually not necessarily a bad character, but he hasn't given much progression throughout the film. The only other person, Vicky. Vicky's this London-based software developer who's the one that suggests Surly as a gangster to come and work for Peter. And throughout the film, I guess he's a little bit of comedic relief. He acts as the translator between Peter and Surly throughout. So that's his role in this film. But apart from that, there's not much else I need to say about the characters. The director, Karthik Subbaraj, 13 directing credits, known as a writer too, all in Tamil. I think obviously knows how to use the camera and knows how to put a narrative together. So impressive for me there. What are some scenes that worked? What are some scenes that didn't work for me in this film? There's this song. This is at the start of the film. I think it's called Racketa Racketa. It's super catchy, but it did really worry me at the start that this film was going to be full of Bollywood songs throughout. And this, I guess, was really the only big dance number, which on reflection is good. And this film did highlight, I guess, how well the guy playing Surly can dance. Like, there were some epic dance moments in this. So I think, good on Dhanush for proving that he's a good dancer too. I enjoyed the small moments throughout the film of Surly's mother. She defends her son throughout, saying he's not a thug, especially at home. And then she comes to live with him in London, and her outpouring of emotion towards Surly about being sick of defending his actions and her always copping the blame for how she raised him and being a poor mother and how she can't deal with that idea of him being labelled a traitor, that she'd rather see him die, and she tells him to get lost. I thought that was an impactful little follow through from her couple of scenes. There's a scene at the start where Surly, he runs a restaurant, and he's at his restaurant and starts taking some people down in this fight. Really well shot, good combat. They make some bombs, throw them. That was cool. That was well done. This is a comedic moment where Surly meets Vicky's girlfriend, and he's sort of surprised at how good looking she is. And it was well edited and put together, because he kept saying, "How is this possible?" in between cuts of what was going on. I thought that was well done. There's a scene where Peter's at the soccer pitch, and he's going backwards and forwards with Surly, uh, with Peter not necessarily understand what he's saying about the British invasion and the ruling of hundreds of years, and that contrast of him being a complete and utter racist. I thought that was well done. There's a guy who washes dishes in this film. His story, again, a bit like Suruli's mother, just this short little story in between. Super impactful story. He washes dishes. He tells the story of how the plates that he washes have stories, and the idea of all you need is family and some land to live on. And he talks about that idea of a piece of paper, like a passport, meaning so much when it shouldn't. I thought that was good too. There's this little montage of Attila's struggles from the attack, this plane attack on her village, and her becoming a refugee and traveling from her village in Sri Lanka to refugee camps through India, Ukraine, Poland, Germany, France, and that struggle, but also that reveal throughout this story of Sivados doing good work and giving hope to many migrants. I thought that was well done. And also like Suruli at the end taking down Peter's mansion, and then there's some good action sequences there. Peter's got like this bazooka or this rocket launcher that just doesn't work. That was humorous. They throw curry powder in his face. I don't know what the deal was there. But then they dump him at very outrageous, but they dump him at the Afghani-Iran border without a passport, making him a refugee instead of killing him and creating this migrant from a country that doesn't exist. Such a ridiculous ending. But hey, the whole film is, so I didn't mind that. The things that didn't work in this one: the opening hunt down and murder of this Matthew character, it was fine, except the car explosion and the fakeness of the CGI. It wasn't the only time in the film where poor CGI ruined car explosions or truck explosions, so I had to call that out. There's this whole debate Suruli has in sort of his opening scene of taking down this guy on a train about betrothal and consummation. It just wasn't funny. I didn't think that was good. Suruli being drawn in by Attila, and this is the first time he sees her. She's on stage singing. He's just in love with her straight away. He goes backstage, never met her before, tells her that he loves her, and he's like, let's get married. This is the first time that he sees her. Just too over the top. Sivados and his men, they're interrogating Suruli. It wasn't that bad, but it just went on and on and on for such a long film already. The peace treaty between Sivados and Peter. There's a scene where the camera just spins round and round multiple times, trying to show the tension in the room between the different characters and a different facial expression, I guess, each time that the camera went around these two warring parties. It just didn't work. There's a moment where Suruli is being rewarded his own street from Peter for his dedication to him. And the two of them have like this drink in the street and dance weirdly. That was just weird. Suruli goes on this date with Attila, and this is the setup. She's setting him up to be killed. And he gets shot so many times and ends up in the lake. Super, it's like, oh, wow, they've killed off the main character. This is crazy. And then you hear the police and the ambulance sirens coming, and they're racing down the street. And then all the people it was a whole gang of people that shot him. They're just running the opposite way. And the police and the ambulances aren't stopping or doing anything there. And then he survives. There is no way he survives this. We cut to him in the hospital bed, and then he ends up back home with his nice house, and Attila's there to support him, and the nurse is there, and she tells Attila that she should make him a big dinner because it would make him feel better. Like, this guy was just shot multiple times. I'm sure that's the last thing on his mind. And then Attila, to finish the job, puts a needle in his drug bag. It was just so obvious that she'd already set him up. It wasn't a big reveal that shocked anyone. And then he slaps her, and I don't know, it didn't play out well. And the fake snow, at the end of the film, there were multiple scenes with fake snow. It just wasn't needed. It was nighttime. It was dark. You don't need snow to add to anything there. The themes, the ideas, I haven't really touched on this, but throughout the film, there's lots of these good little cuts between politicians and rallies and what's going on at the time about xenophobia and immigrant politics and racism. I thought that was all really done well, and especially throughout the film, the meaning of home and what home means, the idea of stateless people without an identity, and home isn't necessarily where you're born, but it's where you live and where you feel comfortable. And this plays through that conflict in Sri Lanka and the plight of refugees and how expensive freedom can be at times too. And also we see the idea of betrayal towards the back end and that follow-up of redemption and doing the right thing from Suruli. What did I take away from this film? The Peter character. The Peter character is such a tricky character. It's super contentious, but I think in the end it's probably done really well through the performance that we see. You're meant to hate the guy, And the hate only works and the dialogue only works because of the over-the-topness that we see from this character. Like, this is a guy who has a white car with number plates that say white power. And these outrageous things he says, like the secret brown world and the mention of people stealing jobs and we don't serve curry here and about mess ups in the gene pool. I had to censor myself there, and the idea that the pound, the British money is sexier than the rupee, and these are all things that people don't say in real life, but they work to highlight how poor these ideals are and how poor this character is. So I can completely understand how this character may not work for people, but I think in the context of the film and how it was done, it really highlighted that theme and the struggles of people because of bigots like this guy. So for me, that was well done. Some questions, some pondering, some thoughts, some ideas. I think there's this scene where Surly, this is at the start of the film, this is that song that I mentioned, the almost one Bollywood dance moment, where it's like Surly's getting married at home. And then he literally gets on a plane to London and he's on the prowl. I just thought that was gross and a little bit weird. Attila's kid, coming from this war-torn village, and he's playing with this Disney Pixar Wall-E, that character, that robot character. We see it twice in the film. Surely Disney Pixar didn't tick off on this character being used. I thought that was interesting. This plays throughout the film too, because our character Peter has private ownership of detention centers, and that's the part of the conflict that he has, is he's making money off these refugees. And I guess that private ownership idea, not necessarily just detention centers, but even prisons, in the real life world, it just seems so open for corruption, and maybe something that could have been played on a little bit further in this film too. And I guess the final thing, like, how believable is it that this murderous gangster, this surly character who just does everything for self-motivation and for monetary gain, becomes this empathetic and politically aware character? Like, is there that real change in him, or is it just to progress the plot? I thought that was interesting. I mean, it's a long film, so you have the opportunity to actually show that progression. And is he just doing it because he likes this girl? I mean, like, does he actually care? I'm intrigued. Other than that, I'm ready to wrap this one up. I've spoken for a long time. Thanks for sticking it out. If you have, we give the films a rating out of 5 on this show. For me, there is no reason why this film needs to clock in at nearly 3 hours. It needed a bit of an edit. Probably an hour could have been cut out of this film, and it's all over the shop at times, but I think that sort of adds to a little bit of the fun of it. Yes, the start was a little bit of a slog, but those ideas and how they show corruption and how they show that xenophobic nature of some white characters in a world, and their response to migrants and new people, I thought it was really well done and made me think a little bit. So I'm giving this a 3 out of 5. Solid score from me. We're on socials. We have Instagram, we have Facebook, and we have X, formerly known as Twitter. This is a quote that I wanted to put out here from Surly at the end of the film. He says, "I will never be a hero. I'll always be a villain." Is this how you see Surly? Is he just always going to be a villain? I mean, even the idea at the end of the film that he doesn't kill Peter and lets him live and allows him, possibly in a sequel, to come back for revenge. There's that change in that character that we needed to see. This is probably a character that would always kill first, but now he doesn't. I'm not sure. I found him as a character a little bit hard to work out whether he's actually changed or whether those changes, as I said before, were for the plot to progress. But other than that, thanks for your time. We're back next week. We have a 2021 romantic comedy next week. It's called Good on Paper. It's directed by Kimmy Gatewood, and it stars Ilja Schlesinger, Ryan Hansen, Margaret Cho, and Rebecca Rittenhouse. So give that one a watch next week if you're interested in playing along on this podcast. Thank you for being here today, and I will see you next week.